All right. So as we all know, anybody that's done some tax returns is how you intake the client information is going to be one of the most important things for you as a tax professional as far as being efficient and really just delivering a superior client experience. So in this video, I want to have Glenn Weiland, our Director of Member Success here at Pronto Tax School, kind of show us how to customize the client questionnaire within the Pronto Tax Systems software in order to really give your client that smooth process of onboarding the client, asking the right questions, that kind of thing. So can you get me oriented, Glenn, and get us oriented about in our software that we offer, how would you customize the client questionnaire to kind of give the best experience depending what kind of clients you're serving?
Okay, thank you, Andy. And basically what we're going to do is to set up your interview program, we're going to go to Setup right here. We click on that, and then we go down to Questionnaire Setup, like that. And basically what you have the option to either take what is already given to you, which I will be setting up for everybody, or you can customize it. So basically, for instance, let's say that you don't really want to ask any questions about the ACA or medical insurance info in your interview. You can basically just delete that, okay, and it'll go away just like that. Or you can also customize it in the way that you want to interview. In other words, do you want to know if the client has wages as the most important feature? Going to maybe start with the client filing status or filing options. You can customize this any way you want. And the way I'm going to be setting it up for all of you is the way I think that you should start the interview when the client sits in front of you. Okay. So one thing about the interview program, again, you can customize it to any way you want to, but what it happens is, let's say that your client says, you ask the questions, do you have any income? And so if they say yes, basically you will click on this, and what will happen on your screen, on your software screen, the Form W-2 will pop up. And you can customize even the question that you're going to ask, okay? Instead of other wages reported on the Form W-2, you can say, do you have any income?
Right.
W-2, okay? And that will be moved to the Form W-2, okay? So these questions, for those people that are maybe first-year tax preparers, this is very important to use. Now, some of you have been around so many years where you can just go straight to the forms, and you have that option. You do not have to use this questionnaire, okay?
But tell me, Glenn, even because I know you've dealt with a lot of high volume tax businesses, in your days. I mean, isn't it kind of important, even if you're experienced, prepared, to have sort of a process of what questions you're asking clients? I would imagine that this questionnaire could maybe even be emailed to a client ahead of time, or just how important is it for us to have this kind of a set process that we go through? Obviously, different situations are different, but just to have a process, like how important do you see that as being?
It's very important. Even as experienced tax preparers, we still tend to miss things. And by doing this questionnaire or this interview process, I think you tend to not miss some of those things that are important to the client. Like for instance, like sometimes we forget to ask if they're in college because they might look 40 or 50 years old, but they're still going to school, and so we forget to ask them about college expenses. So basically by doing the questionnaire, that's one of the questions that would be asked. The only negative thing about the questionnaire, it will take more time to do the tax return, but I think it will be more accurate in the end.
Yeah, and remember, you guys, with how TurboTax and the other do-it-yourself programs are working, are a lot of questions being asked. And so that's giving clients the impression of, hey, you're catching every possible deduction, every possible tax break. So just how are you building that into your process? And this customizing this questionnaire is a great way to do it. Can you also touch on, Glenn, like if you have a team, so say, you have a few other preparers or two other preparers that are kind of following your lead. Do you see this tool as being helpful for, kind of standardizing processes when you're working with a team?
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's all part of the training process. So absolutely, I agree with you.
And within the actual software, Glenn, can you show us how, so you start with the questionnaire, or how within the software, once we have it customized the way that we like it, based on our client group, based on our processes, how in the software does this help me better be a better preparer?
Well, basically, by doing the interview process, it kind of sets up, you learn a lot about your client, okay? Whether they bought an electric car last year, which is becoming more popular. But it gives you a better idea of their needs, the things that they need to show you. But as you ask each question, what you'll do is, when you say, hey, are you self-employed? And then immediately you would say, and they say yes, they say, okay, do you have a P&L, profit and loss statement, or what do you have? Do you have a logbook, or what do you have? So this interview process is kind of nice, and especially if you don't know your client. If you know your client from previous years, obviously it becomes a lot easier. So that's basically what you need to do, and then from there you basically go to your client data and you put all the information in there and go from there.
So if you hit that little plus button, that expand button on the return interview, next to where it says return interview on the left side, is that okay? So if I'm doing an interview, I would just go through these. This is where the customized questions will show up. Is that right?
Correct. So for instance, this particular client's single, so you mark the single one, and then you go just right to next.
Okay,
and
cool.
Then take all that information, okay, and you go to next.
Cool.
Find out personal information, address, things like that. You go next. It's very quick. I mean, once you get, after you've done about 5 or 10 of these, it becomes very simple. Initially I would take your time and kind of make sure you understand. And by training, and that's one thing we'll be offering training on the software. I think you'll really get a good hold of, good feel of exactly what's wanted from all these questions. But yeah, there's the wages, W-2. Did you receive unemployment? Okay, so you just mark that. And at all times, by the way, let's say you're on a particular block right here. It tells you on the bottom what they're exactly asking. Do you have any interest? Okay, if they have interest, you just mark it like that. Then you go to the next one. Do you have any dividends? So if you're unfamiliar with any of these words or sentences, you can always get it down at the bottom right here.
Yeah, I like that. It does kind of give you a process and an order to working through. And it seemed like as you're filling out that interview, Glenn, it is kind of populating some of that data and telling you which forms you're going to need, and just overall kind of making it easier to gather those documents from the client.
Correct. Exactly correct. Yeah.
Okay.
So yeah.
So it's pretty straightforward, you guys, but definitely something that if you invest a little time, probably before tax season would be ideal. Really dial in customize your interview questions. And this is great too for clients that maybe don't want to sit there and watch you actually prepare the return, right? So you maybe even could do this over the phone with the client. Just especially like Glenn mentioned with new clients, really something that will help you get to know your client.
That's it.
Very good. All right. We'll see you soon, and hopefully this is helpful. Talk to you soon. Thanks, Glenn.
All right. Okay.